Every step forward is a new beat to your drum. Achieve success with Global.Media.com. Then celebrate it with or without champagne or rum.
Live. We're live. I'm so happy we're live. It all looks very dodgy. Thank you so much for being here. I see Denise is here, so welcome, Denise. Thank you so much. If you want to join the studio, Denise, feel free. I'll send you the link, so please do join us. So it's wonderful to see you all here. So I'm blown away by the number of us who have shown up here today. Indeed, we are too. Just thanks to Michelle B's invites. I say that, right? In the midst of all that we're accomplishing, so I acknowledge every one of you. I will be honored to connect. Excellent. Now, connect with Denise. Please do connect with Denise. My friends, if you're here, then do join us. And I met Denise last year, so I know this topic is probably likely very important to her, for sure. So do connect. So maybe all I want to say is let's connect to support each other, because my knowledge, my thing about today's event is when I was an advocate for children with disabilities for about 4 years. And in that context, I really got to see the realities of IEPs and the services that children with disabilities receive. It's very different to what the paperwork says, what the policy says. And I can imagine it is also, it must be galling, it must be so annoying when you see someone from the statutory services, is what we call them in the UK, who looks at you and goes, we're doing everything in our policy. We're doing everything that the law says we have to do. And parents get so annoyed, so frustrated. Look, I've worked with kids who are now, those who are non-verbal, those who are on hospital beds, those who are on machines all day, every day. Those who are in serious children with disabilities hospitals. Trying to give them a voice. So I know I know some of the frustrations. I wonder how today's going to go. I wonder what we're going to learn from. I think my three geniuses, that's Paulette and the two Michelles, know this topic well, right? So I'm sure you have a lot that we want to share. Let me finish by saying, let's turn this into a solutions conversation. What can we do differently to get what we want for our children, for ourselves, for our society, for our communities, right? Let's think of solutions as well as the problems that we know exist. Philip, I see you. Welcome. Leanne, I see you as well. Thank you for being here. Natalie, thank you so much. Cyrus, thank you for being here as well. The link to the studio is on the events page, so do go to the events page and do connect. If you're going to come in the studio, just click on the link on the events page comment section. If that's too much of a problem, let me know. So put on here, send me the link, and then I should do my best to send you a link to your DMs. LinkedIn user, tech issues. The second Emily mentions me. Who's LinkedIn user? Please let me know. Christiana? I don't know. No, okay. It's someone I just mentioned, right? My little memory. It's not you, Natalie, I hope. Is it Anne-Marie? I have no idea. And of course, we have the legend Melissa Houston here as well. Some of the parents need support. Agree. Charito, welcome as well. Thank you all for being here. Let me stop talking. I talk way too much. Why do I keep waffling? Anyway, please, my friends, introduce yourselves. I don't know who's going to start. You do you.
Hi, you guys. My name is Michelle Bodenhorn, and today we are going to talk about IEPs, because I didn't learn about IEPs when my kids went to school. And so it was really hard to work everything out. And not only did I not know about IEPs, no one explained it to me, or I didn't even think to ask anyone. And we can actually make that not happen anymore. And so I believe that's what we're here doing today, is to show take little bits and pieces from each other's IEP and let's put them together for our kids, and let's break these chains. It's not hard, folks. This is going to be an easy peasy thing, and it's not going to, we just need to combine some things and talk. And I think it's awesome that we have Paulette and Michelle Ramos and Annie to do it for us, because I need to learn it personally, and I have great grandkids, and I know that their parents need to learn it as they're growing up too. So let's all do this together. What do you say?
You're far too humble, Michelle. Now you know a lot that we're going to learn from today for sure. Oh, Denise is the one that suddenly had issues. Okay, thanks, Natalie. You're a star. Thank you so much. Sarah says, "Paulette, your role model. She is that." Yeah, and I think I'm speaking for everyone. You really are, Sarah. Thank you so much. I think Melissa Houston is here as well, our super coach.
We know Paulette's great. That's why we have her here. I went on an adventure and I found her in the UK because I was trying to find some things for my daughter, and look what I brought back. She wasn't hiding though, you guys. I had to go do some gardening. I gardened over at her house, virtually though, virtually.
And I was under a rock. That's where you find me.
And so
across the pond and under a rock.
The mic is yours now, Paulette.
Michelle, you're far too. Yeah, sorry.
The mic is
Am I
yours.
okay now?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say to Michelle, first of all, do not be so humble, Mrs., because there's so much that you know and you've learned, and you'll pass on to so many. So please don't ever say that you don't know, because you do. And I say that because directly above us is the headmistress of all this, because Michelle Ramos, there's nothing this lady hasn't investigated, checked, double checked, triple checked. I'm the warrior. I'm the warrior. I've got the spear and I go to war. But I don't always read, and I don't always look at the facts, and I don't always look where I stand, and I don't always know the rights and the rules and everything else. I just shout, and then I shout, and eventually somebody listens. Now, that was the old me, because I didn't know any better. I had a child that needed help, and everyone was telling me he didn't need help. So the only way that I knew how to get help was to use the one thing I've got, which is my voice. And for years, we were told he had no hearing issues. And then I find out I was right. I devised my own little secret little game, if you like, which was, if I say blue Pringles, which is Ben's favorite crisp, and he moves and looks round, right? But he ignores everything else I say, I know that he's teasing or tormenting us or pretending to be a bit deaf. But if we say blue Pringles and there's not even a momentary movement, he doesn't look at when I've got the packet and I'm shaking it behind him, then listen, we have a problem, right? And I stood in front of an audiologist and I was like, you will do an audio test today. And they were looking at me going, and I was like, I'm not moving. And they go, it doesn't work that way. You have to have an appointment. And I said, yes. And in 2 weeks' time, when I come back, guess what? He'll be fine. And he'll pass all the tests. But today, you need to do the test. Because today, he can't hear. And so she looked at me and she said, just sit down, Mrs. Hallam. We'll get you a cup of coffee. I said, I don't want a coffee. I want a hearing test. And she was like, yes, we understand all of that. And because people are looking and there's people all queued up waiting for their tests. And there's this crazy woman. And I was crazy because I don't usually do this and I would never do it in business. But here I was shouting at somebody, telling them I was not budging. I had a 3-year-old son who was deaf and nobody would listen to me. He wouldn't sit down in play school because why would he? He can't hear anything. They won't sit down when everyone else is sitting down and being good listening to story time. If you're deaf, why would you want to sit down? and listened to nothing. So she did eventually I got a coffee, which was great. That was the calm me down moment. Then they said, we'll fit you in between this and this. It'll be about 11 o'clock. And that meant I was going to be there for about 3 hours. And I was like, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. She thought that would put me off. Oh, no. I said, I'll be here. She said, are you going to go off and get a coffee? No, I'm staying here. I'll sit right in this seat here until you see my son. And that's what you call fighting your corner. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but it was the only thing I had. And when he flatlined every test, he failed everything. He couldn't hear high, he couldn't hear low. She said he's got one of the worst cases of glue ear I've ever seen. I am so sorry. We have failed you and we have failed your son. I said, but what can we do about it? She said, nothing right now. I said, so this is what he's got to put up with. And I said, he gets an ear infection every other week. He gets a cold every other week. It's at nursery school. That's what they do, right? So she said, his head is quite large. It's grown into it now, but he has quite a big head, little body. And she said his head is, a little bit too large right now to do the grommets. So we don't want to do them probably till it's about 4.5. So I was like, so he's going to have a year of being deaf periodically. She said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but yes. But at least now we know, we understand. That was the start of my fight. And I was still fighting when he went to university to make sure that he had half an hour a week therapy and that he went and had another complete autism spectrum, neurodivergence, call it what you will, a full assessment. And they said, these are what you need. Half an hour extra in your certain test, this, that, and the other. Now, I'm not saying that I'm doing the right thing still. He's a grown up now. He's 21. He'll be 22 in September. Will I stop fighting? No. But what I will be now is I'm by his side. I don't have to fight anymore. If he needs something, he can ask or talk to us. But when they're little and they can't, no one can fight for them but you. And if you don't have parents, and I'm going to be really honest now, not everybody has parents that have got the time, the love in their heart, or the understanding of how complicated it is to get the help they need. This is this is my passion speech. And that is that if you've got nothing else, you've got that, right? Go use it. Go shout at people. Go make noise. Go be difficult. Go be awkward. And if you need all the backup with the documentation and everything else, we'll get that. Between the three of us, we'll put together what you need officially. But for right here, right now, if all you've got is your voice, then you use your voice because that's the only tool you've got. But whatever happens, the love in your heart should tell you there's something wrong. And don't be frightened when you know there's something wrong. My in-laws did not want to accept there was a problem. We had a heck of a fight. In fact, my father-in-law used to get up from the table and walk away. If we were discussing autism, he didn't want to know he was away. Didn't want to hear about it. It was like, la, 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 go away, Now, you can't be like that. You have to have support. And if you don't have support, those people need to be shut away from the problem. Not discuss it. You still discuss it. And if they don't like it, they walk away. That's their problem. But don't tell me it isn't happening to my child when I know it is. So I would really advise anyone to use your heart, use your head, yes, but the most important thing is to use your voice. So that's who I am. Now we're going to go to the person who does the work.
Hold on,
who doesn't
hold,
just shout. And
hold on.
that's Michelle R., the expert.
Look, that voice is called advocacy. Learn the word, my friends. Learn the word and learn to do it. When you mention the parents who can't do it, who won't do it, sometimes I guess it's a realization, which is what I found in my time, that some of those parents have their own neurodivergence issues themselves. That's why they haven't got the wherewithal to make the case. That's why you need someone like me, an advocate, who would do the paperwork, as you're saying, Paulette. This is almost two strategies we're giving you before we explain the issue, right? I think, my trick was simply, Paulette, I always threaten my local authority with court action. Don't do what the law says, I'm taking you to court. That was always my last resort. But I wrote devastating letters like Michelle Ramos does, long letters. I don't talk in public, I never did, right? But I could write a letter that was the illegal letter, and suddenly people will listen, because the cost of being found guilty with the system, and being found guilty in public is probably more the point, Michelle, right? In that, if they're found to have broken their own rules, their own laws, publicly, they always fear the diligent parents are going to suddenly dump on them and say, right, my child has that same issue, fix it, because you fix it for that one, why not? But that's life, right? The as far as you have to find your voice, advocate for yourself, for your child, and that's often the only way things improve. Anyway, let me stop talking. Let me welcome Lisa. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. We'll have a room next, and Lisa's room is next in a couple of hours. We're going to talk about financial planning in midlife, and our special guest is Leah Garcia, Queen Leah, as I call her. So do join us, especially menopause, and making money, building wealth is part of your agenda. It should be, right? As Lisa says. Sarah, it's great to see you back, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you're here. Michael, I see you too. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. Jean-Michel, thank you so much for being here too. I don't think we've met before, but thank you for being here. Let me stop talking. Michelle Ramos, we're coming to you.
Oh, this is like what a start to the show. So first of all, thank you, Annie and Paulette, for letting me in. Mrs. Michelle. I like that. I think you did that, Paulette. You called her Mrs. Michelle. So I think that's our distinguishing thing now is Miss Michelle and Mrs. Michelle. But I'm very thankful that you allow us to have this stage to have these conversations, create this awareness. For people watching that don't know who I am, I'm Michelle Ramos, and I'm the founder of Don't Raise Statistics. I am also the single parent of a very neurodivergent child. I myself am neurodivergent, and I, in real time, go against systems that were not built for individuals like us. And I just want to go wrap around with what Paula has said today already. And wow, I'm holding back tears. This is definitely going to be, I already feel very emotional and impactful. So I don't have the upbringing of a family dynamic situation in which I've learned how to navigate these systems. I navigate many sectors within many systems with fierce advocacy, and I'm often labeled as resilient by society, and that is not by the case anything I ever want to be called. When we have to fight for our children, you guys need to really understand these emotions. This is because Annie and Paula have given us a place to be safe and let this vulnerability show. Because when this is what people see when you're out there, you're the upset parent, you're the disgruntled this. You have to learn how to separate this from the advocacy. Because when you're advocating for your child's education, for their housing, for their life, for their future, they only care about what's in the black and white in the law. And from experience, let me tell you, when you're walking into these courtrooms, they don't want to hear your emotion. They don't care that these tears, they don't care that the sleepless nights, they don't care that your child has been suicidal and that you sat there night after night exhausted because you're scared to go to sleep because there's a policy that says an 11-year-old is not allowed to be suicidal yet. Like, go make it work. So I just want to first of all say, like, I'm grateful that we have this platform, that we get to have these conversations. And I also want to say that everything I say is a direct reflection of myself. It is a direct reflection of the self-education and the time I commit to reading law codes, court proceedings, educational codes, the IDEAs. I invest that time. I spend countless hours making notes and educating myself. I am not licensed at all to practice law in the state of Ohio or anywhere else in the world, but that is just yet, okay? So while there might be active, open litigation against me claiming that I'm practicing law without a license, you need to understand when you start advocating, it gets that real. People become threatened with the truth. And when the truth is with you, you really just have to be prepared that it will come at you, like hardcore. And but yeah, we're gonna talk about IEPs. I am neck deep in a fight that has been going on now for 2 years. Some of it has went into the legal arena, so I can't discuss those areas. In the new arena, we are working on a fresh group and a new support team, and it is positive. So with that, we'll let Amy and Paulette let us know where they want us to go.
That's really awesome. The reason I put you on big screen is your sound is not the greatest. So we'll have to
I'll work
see
on
it.
that here in just a second.
Easy that we see you. There's what's that thing? Scratchy. Yeah, it's gone now. That's fine. That's fine. Hopefully we'll still hear you. That's perfect. Okay, awesome. A couple of people have joined us. Jay, welcome. Hello, Miss Ramos. Yeah, that's one of Michelle's friends for sure. Well, he is now, and of course Miss Pepperoni, the late nights, Friday nights musical genius. I mean, the left. I call her Friday night DJ. I suppose why I call her for sure. Thank you for being here, Noni. Thank you so much. So Denise has some amazing points that we'll get to. Who wants to explain what IEPs are? I could do, but I'm saying I'd rather hear it from the parents who are here. Michelle, please, all yours.
I think Michelle Ramos should, because honestly, I haven't had to actually feel. I have grandchildren, and my daughter just turned 20 now, and so Michelle Ramos is right in the middle, and she needs this.
No, I could explain it. Michelle, the mic is yours. Feel free.
Is the audio better like this?
Yeah, it's better, much better.
Okay, so here in the States, and the IEP is an individualized education plan, and what it is meant to be is where the schools are accommodating to the individual's educational needs, as there usually are accommodations that alter from what a typical child would get during the school day. Through these talks, and engaging with Paulette, I've learned the UK is very much different, and learning the model that you guys are using, I am in awe. I wish we utilized your platform, because here it's just what I said, educational. Where I'm finding myself is there's a disconnect between the educational need of our children and the mental health need of our children. And the advocacy that is the hardest for me is getting them to realize that they need to be side by side. I can't send my child to a school that when you're not helping with the mental health on top of the academics. She's walking around your hallway suicidal. There's a disconnect. So here, IDEA is individual educational. Done. There's no health and wellness holistical approach to the individual as a whole, complete well-being. So I feel where the IEPs are amazing, as in, we get the accommodation, the fight and the advocacy, and then the correlation of getting them all combined is a struggle. And then I'll let you, Paula, if you want to explain where I'm trying to
think
give
what
you
you've just said is, if I could just, what you've just said, my love. No, you're perfect. What I was going to say is this, and this is so relevant to everything you've just said. When you look at a child from the minute they leave the house to the minute they return to the house, how they get to school, the vehicle that's used, whether it's a bus, whether it's their feet, whether it's a wheelchair, whether it's a mobility scooter, whatever it is that gets them to the school is part of the journey. Because that journey from the minute they leave your home is when they lose their mama bear or their father bear. They lose that person who is fighting for them. So the minute they leave you and they get on a bus and they get bullied, or the minute they get on a bus and every seat is taken and you're the third child on the bus, right? The minute you get onto a bus and a child says you're not allowed on the bus, and it's only the driving the driver, or they're supposed to have nowadays, it doesn't always happen, but there's supposed to be a second adult on a bus now because of keeping order, and also for if people say, oh, the bus driver did something to me, if there's another adult there, then that gives both of them that security. But from the minute they leave your house to the minute they return to your house, the whole person needs to be looked into. So it's what their mood is when they arrive in class could depend on whether they've been beaten up on the bus, or couldn't find a seat on the bus, or had a horrific journey, or are having abuse at home, or living in a difficult circumstance, or living in a bloody car, or whatever the reason the child is in that state, is how they arrive at school. Have they had anything to eat? If they've not eaten, they're going to be needing food. This is without any IEPs in place. This is just looking at a holistic approach of what a child's needs are. So now let's take the ideal scenario. We've got the child to school. The child is in a relatively okay mood and has had food and struggles to sit next to somebody. They need space. They don't like people touching their stuff. This is not unusual. This is an autistic trait. This is a standard neurodivergence issue. Children sometimes need to be able to put their arm around and not feel anything or anybody, and that gives them the comfort to know they're safe, especially if they've been abused, especially if they have had issues. Now, if a school won't accommodate that, then that's the smallest thing you have to do is put the bloody child at the front of the class. There'll be a lot of bloodies today. I apologize in advance, but I'll try and keep it at bloody. You put the child at the front of the class. You put the space so that the child is at the front of the class. Now they've got the space around them. That's all you needed to do. How difficult was it for you to accommodate that? It's like, let's try and solve a problem and not fight a problem. And what I find is that in every situation, but can we get away with not doing it? Can we not have that child in the class because that child is a bit disruptive. That child caused a problem. That child's a bit difficult. That child that, it's always about that child. But you know what? When it's your child, you want your child in that class. So let's work on accommodating the needs the best we can to not give you a headache, not make it difficult for the other students, but allow your child to the education that it's entitled to and that you've paid for. It's vitally important that every child is listened to. It's vital that every parent is listened to. If a child struggles when children scream and shout, then there'll be many other children the same. Put them in a quieter class. There's always the noisy classes. My husband was a head of maths, huge school, 2,500 pupils, and they would have classes that would be so noisy that he would not expect silence. He would not expect to teach in silence. He would expect to teach with a hum. He knew that some of them were talking, but if you spent the whole lesson asking for silence, guess what? Nothing will be taught. So there comes a point where you accommodate what you're dealing with. He could talk over them. Some of them would be learning, some of them wouldn't. Those that are facing the front are generally those that are interested, right? You can't change every single setting, but what you can do is say, I will teach those that want to be taught. Let's bring them further to the front. Let's leave those that want to be naughty and misbehave and spend most lessons in detentions and everything else. Behavioral problems are separate to what we're talking about here. If we're talking about a child who has behavioral issues, then that is a very different circumstance. A behavioral issue, i.e., a child that is fighting in class, a child that goes around knocking books off desks for no other reason than they are just disruptive. That child should not be in the classroom. That child needs different help. That child needs calming down. That child needs a different set of help to what we're talking about. I'm talking about the child that wants to be in school but needs special, I say dispensations. That's not even the right word. But what it
Provision,
means is it's
support.
provisions. Yeah, that's a good word, support. I'm talking about the child that says, I don't like it when I can hear whispering behind me, right? And you have to say to that child, well, there should be no noise in class. This class is a learning class and we'll have quiet. That accommodates 80% of the class. 80%. One of my favorite things that I ever heard, and I've used it in my books, I've used it in so many of my talks I've given, is this. If you teach the class one way and half the class look up and go, yep, got that. And you look at the other half and they're going, that's one of my I don't get it looks. You have to follow my emojis, but you'll get there. It's the I don't get it look, right? So you teach the class a slightly different way. You say, you might reverse engineer it. You might just reframe it. You might just put it in a different way so that the other half of the class go, oh, this teacher I taught to said to me, one of my absolute favorite teachers of all time, she said, because of your son, I'm a better teacher. That's a crying moment. That right there is a crying moment when you realize you've come full circle from shouting and screaming and fighting and being the enemy to everybody to a teacher saying to you, because of your child and what you taught me, I'm a better teacher. Because now I always teach it both ways. Because half the class, no doubt, will have something. whether it's diagnosed or undiagnosed, half the class will see it one way, the same as we do as adults, right? We don't always pick up on everything first time. It's so important that all these IEPs and the way that we look at it as this child needs to take half an hour out to go and have therapy or counseling or whatever you want to call it. Instead of making it a big thing, oh, Ben, time for your therapy. No, let's not do that. Let's not tell the whole class that it's Ben's time to go and have therapy. How about we just say, Ben, it's your turn to go to support, right? And the child that's got issues with perhaps dyspraxia, dyslexia, who has support to go and help reading and writing, extra lessons outside the classroom to support them, they just go to support, right? When my son was so bad, and I'm going off topic, but it's important. When my son got so bad that he was in a mentally the worst place, as we've spoken about with Michelle, I will tell you, okay, he had a stomach problem. So every time we went to the psychotherapist or the psychologist or whoever it was at the time we were going to work our way back to as near to normal as we could get the classroom normal, he had to take half a day because it was to Cambridge and back. It was too long, couldn't do it always, unless I could get a really early one or a really late one. Most of the time he had to take time out of school. He would always catch up, he'd always do his homework, but when they asked, he had a stomach problem. And the agreement was we had to go to the hospital. That was Ben's way of telling people I have to go to somewhere, right? He didn't want to admit that he was going to therapy. He didn't want the whole world to know he was going to counseling. He was going to go somewhere that was outside of school. Now, I'm saying I believe this is how we need to be with all children. Whatever it needs to be, if it's an eating disorder, if it's whatever it is, whatever the problem that child has, that child's needs need to be met, and they get met in a way that is caring. So that child doesn't feel like an oddball. That child isn't pulled out to be different. That child isn't given a label, because every child who knows the label uses the label. It's a weapon. And even teachers use it. Teachers use it. Because I've had someone say to me, oh, Ben was told he couldn't, and this is relevant as well. I was told that a teacher told the whole classroom that Ben had autism. Now, she could have been struck. She could have lost a job and never, ever teach again. I could have sued the arse of that school. Sorry, I swore again. I could have sued the bottom off of that school. But the point was, what I did was I took her down. I took her down, right? She got Mama Bear. She got full Mama Bear, right? But at the end of the day, one of his friends that had been friends with him since he was 7, he was now 10, going on 11. So for 3 or 4 years of friendship, he said, oh, I can't put you, Ben, down as my friend, because you have to put 3 friends down for your next year. So hopefully you get at least one of your friends in your classroom. So he couldn't put Ben down as one of his friends because he had autism and he might be disruptive. So Ben said this to me. So I said, what, Nick said that to you? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Nick's mum, we need to talk face to face. Mama Bear, right? How the dare you? You were so happy for him to be your child's friend for 3.5, 4 years, best friends, going here, parties there, doing that, whatever. And now you've heard this word, and now that changes how you see my son. Who are you? What kind of person are you? How judgy are you? I'm afraid you're no longer my friend, because anyone who says that about my child can't be my friend. So as long as you don't mind losing, not only your son losing his friend, but you've lost your friend too. So if you can leave now. No, let me talk. No. You lost the privilege of talking when you said what you said and you did what you did. And how many other parents have you told? Because I know you. You can't keep your gob shut for life. So who else have you told? She's like, I know it probably over Facebook for all I knew. I'm never on Facebook, but it probably could have been. But the point was, this should never have happened, right? Ben came home and asked me what's autism because he got found out from his friend Nick. And I had to explain to him what it was. I didn't know what to say. I got caught, as they say, with my pants down. I was not expecting it, right? I was going to talk to him when he was 11 or 12, not at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. He wasn't mentally capable of really understanding. So do you know what I said? You're just wired differently. And he said, what's that mean? I said, well, everybody's got wires in their head. Yours go one way, some go the other. Your ones make you super clever. They make you say things that perhaps you shouldn't say, remember? And he was like, yeah, I know. And I said, and also sometimes you don't always understand what people are saying. And people have to explain it to you in a different way, don't they? Yeah. I said, that's all it means. What's disruptive mean? I was like, let's look it up, shall we? So we looked it up because I wanted him to see it. We put disruptive up on the screen. And it was like difficult, dangerous, could be problematic, could cause this problem, that problem. He had a whole list of things what disruptive meant. And I said to him, are you any of them? He was like, no. I said, right. So does autism mean that you're that? No. I said, now let's look at autism. We looked up autism and he was like, that's a lot of big words. I said, yeah, but it basically says what I just said. You're just wired differently. And he was like, okay. But what he wasn't was disruptive. And he wasn't going to have it that he was disruptive. And I loved that about him. So he went back in the next day and he said to Nick, I have got autism, but I'm not disruptive. Right? And he said, I know you're not, Ben. I'm sorry. I've looked it up. I said, does that change anything? He said, Ben said, Mum, I don't care. It's fine. I said, does it change how you feel about Nick? He said, no, it wasn't his fault. It was his mum. She didn't understand. She's ignorant. I was like, yeah, tell her to look that up. But, that's the bad sense of humor in me, right? But the point is, this is where we get to the real nitty gritty of what does an IEP stand for? What does it mean? As opposed to, over to you, Mrs.
So actually, my question is, and I'm actually sitting here reading some database. You guys, they call this the, I want to be right, education, health, and care plans. So here we have an IEP, individualized education plan. So there you guys have CPs. So holistically, they're putting you in the UK. It's all coming together under one comprehensive overview. And if I'm understanding this correctly, what I've researched, like this has been taking place since 2014. Yes.
Totally right.
Technically,
Correct.
Okay, well, that's
Technically,
technically okay.
correct.
So then I was reading something. What does it mean? Okay, so here, a parent has a right to request an IEP. The school has 30 to 45 days for acknowledgement and either acceptance or refusal of said request. Okay. What is this 20-week thing? I'm not understanding that.
Well, the assessment has to be
So-
carried out time, right? Hold on. Well, let me explain my slight understanding, right? So the EHCP includes your IEP. The IEP is part of it. So the other part of it is health, and then your care, if you need extra. And the backbone of all of this is the fact that every child has the right to free support and services at school, in health, and in and the social life. You said holistic is the word for it, Michelle. So here, this is why I don't know what's easier here, but an assessment is done, and then there's a diagnosis, and then the support needs are identified, right? And these service providers, our health services, our social services, our education services, must provide the services to the child free. In the US, I know your IEPs, what's in your IEPs will be provided free of charge as well, right? So this is where the issue comes. I'm taking it somewhere deliberately. I'm saying, is that free bit that is not done? I think there's a comment, but I'm going to go to some of Denise's amazing comments. I wish you were here in the studio, Denise. But people don't provide the services that are specified in the IEPs. Then there's legal documents that say this child has these needs, and we are obligated to meet them. And that's what the IEP really is, right? So when the systems don't meet the needs of the child, rightly the parents are looking, saying, "I'm sorry, is that this in black and white? What do you mean?" They say, "No, I know the bigger frustration apart from not meeting the need is having people look at you in your face, especially the chief exec, the top boards in this institute, these organizations, look at you and go, but we're meeting all our legal obligations." You're like, "Hell no, you're not. You're just not. You're just not." So I do also want to refer very quickly to what Paulette was saying earlier. So I think the other problem is that with or without an IEP, there's this tendency, it's called discrimination. There's no other word for it, where it's always the children with special needs who are seen as disruptive because they choose to see it that way, rather than saying the needs have been identified on paper by assessment, by specialists or several specialists. Now that child just been disrupted. And that's what we can't have happen. That's why Mama Bear suddenly appear. The nice Paulette that suddenly becomes a Mama Bear now that people don't understand. Before I throw it to you, Paulette, I think people need to understand the breadth of special needs that children can have. So it's easy to think we know what that really means. Just before we started today, Michelle sent me a document which is in the comments. So it's talking about something called ACEs. Let me show you what ACEs is. Then you might get an understanding of the breadth of issues that children have that's almost illegally, services are legally required to provide for. It's only a minute long, so after that, Paulette, I'll come to you. That's all right. Let me take this off, and then we'll look at some of the comments. So here's what ACEs is, my friends. Here we go. it's a quick video, but I'm sure you get the idea, right? So here's the point. The one thing I realized there are two questions that drives my passion for children with disabilities. The first one is simply I realized this could happen to me tomorrow. It could happen to my child tomorrow. Any of us can get run over tomorrow, and suddenly we'll now have a brain injury. What's meant to happen to me? What do we know? This is why I'm so passionate about inclusiveness. Call it that, right? Inclusion as a thing, because I think it has to be. The second thing that drives any is the realization that all these kids will grow up. They have to have an adulthood. We have two choices. Either we're going to leave them to have an adulthood full of needs, it's often unmet, or we're going to have to find a way to support them to have independence in adulthood. That's what IEPs are really for. Educate our kids, they can get independence, then they can get a job and be like a regular person, build a life, right? Build a living themselves. This is why we do what we do. If we don't give the support as children, what's they meant to do? Society will pay more. They will have a miserable life, and now what? We don't live forever. So in most cases, we as parents go before our kids do. I'm saying we must equip them to live an adult life without us. In England, the IEPs or the EHCPs go on until you're 25. I don't know what the US does, how long your IEPs go on. I haven't got a clue, right? So actually both Michelle's are dying to talk. So
No, Michelle, what is it?
Look. Last I said very quickly, that ACEs video is on the document, so you can watch it again on the document and with the link in the comments, right? So I think I love the video because you can see that the needs children have is not just special needs as we know it. It includes trauma. And many children experience trauma of the worst kind. What are we doing to support them? Many people work with kids will say to you, the worst thing you can do to a child is let them witness domestic violence. It ruins their lives for good. I'm saying there's things that we know are just toxic to children. The ACEs video makes the point very, very well. I'd say quickly, but very well. Let me stop talking now. Michelle's, or Paulette, are you going to speak? Or anyone who wants to speak, unmute your mic, please. Feel free.
I just want to thank you, Michelle. I did go to the webinar with Michelle. Well, we didn't know who was there, and honestly, it was the first time I saw exactly what I've been talking about, that we need to break the chain of. And we do. We need to quit making everything taboo, or we can't break that chain, folks. Honestly, look in the comments, look at that paperwork, look at ACEs. Oh my gosh. And that's what blows my mind. And that's why I went on an adventure for Paulette and Annie and Michelle, because oh my gosh, do you know what it's like being 53 and just finding all this out yourself? And you're just, I got to do something. I got to do something. And we've got to quit making this taboo, and we can do it. It's going to be hard. A lot of people aren't going to be happy with this or that. And I understand, but we can meet in the middle. ACEs. You look at the diagrams, folks. Look what we are doing to the next generation. The youth are our future. It's up to us, me, you, everyone that's watching this, to look at these ACEs report and see we're just dragging out our kids. And most of the time when any of our kids are on anything, they're automatically put on depression medication. Honestly, as Paulette and Annie know, I do have a TBI. I also did just get off my depression medication because I wasn't depressed, but I had been on it for so many years that my team of doctors that I have, they were just, oh, well, you've been taking this forever and he seems to be fine. But then when I got on to Lidocaine, I was reading into it with a lot of different actual PDs and everything, not just anyone, you guys. And it was like, don't take that because of what chemistry is on our bodies. If we don't need it, it mixes with, look at the periodic table. You got to, make sure everything connects. And I was noticing straight up when I looked at the periodic table, the medication that I was taking didn't match with my other medication on the periodic table. And how crazy is that for me to even want to look? But I did, and I saw what I saw, and so I got my depression medication. Not saying it wasn't hard. I was cranky. I was rude. I'll admit it. I could feel it coming off of it. But folks, I was also on it for over 20 years. 20 years I didn't have to take that medication. And I did because someone assumed. Honestly, when I looked back, it had to do, I was put on it during a case, a CPS case. And I was put on it and they said, you're depressed. And, okay, if that's going to get my kids back, all right, I'm depressed. Give me the pill. Give me the pill. And that's what I did. That's what I did. And so when I found out I wasn't actually depressed, because the person that put me on this medication they gave the recommendation to the psychiatrist that I had never seen. They recommended, since they had seen me for an hour, that this is what I needed to be on. And that was it. I took it into the psychiatrist or whoever, can legally write the prescription. He looked at me, he asked me what my name was. I told him my name. He asked me my birthday. I gave him my birthday. And he said, well, it says right here that your therapist thinks you need to be on depression medication. So guess what? Here you go. 10 minutes. 10 minutes changed my whole life. Never saw him again. I had to keep going back to that clinic though. Every month to make sure I was taking those medications, and I had to make sure I was taking that drug test to see what medications I was on. And not once did I ever fail. But then when I actually got to an actual, and stuff like that, they're like, well, why are you on this? It's like, oh, I don't know. Don't you know? And they're like, no, you don't have that. I had to actually ask they were like, why are you on this? Well, they said I have that. And they would give me a scenario. Do you have that? No. Then you're not that. Take you off that. And it was a long, long time, you guys, of getting me to where I'm at right now. But that 10 minutes of someone is suing for an hour that filled out a form during a CPS hearing changed the course of my life forever. And so we need to quit drugging people if we don't need to, right? Just because your child's running around and hyper doesn't mean your child's depressed. I'm going to think your child's happy and he's hyper, but that's kind of up to you, but we need to start thinking about this because it's awful what we're doing to the future of our youth, because they're looking at us. And while they're looking at us, it's like we say things, but we don't practice it. And I can see now, I always thought it was the teacher's fault. No, we just don't have our teachers up to date. I do think there's a lot of things that we need to do there so we can bring things up to date. And I graduated in 1990, you guys, but I had my first child in 1992. Heck yeah. I don't care what anyone says. But we need to start updating, you guys. Everybody else has. We need to start updating too. Because There's nothing wrong with me. I've never been on disability. I always worked. I had to do what I had to do, but I couldn't see someone putting me in a box and tell me what I could and could not do, because that box didn't fit me and it was going to kill me. And I had to make a choice. And I decided to live outside the box. And there's nothing wrong with it. And it's not even scary like I thought it was going to be. And I would like to hear from you, Michelle, because you know what, your mother, your daughter, you're the mama, but your daughter, right now, you are in there, and we need to know from moms, what do you, and I don't care what party you are on, we both want the same things. We both want unity. We both want to be happy. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or conservative or what ethnicity, I can never say it right, you are. We want the same thing. We're just trying to do it too differently. No, let's all come together, you guys. Because I don't want what happened to me, even though I came out okay, to happen to other kids, because our kids are killing themselves at a rate we can't keep the world going. If that's not a huge, here's your sign, parents, I don't know what is. So we know what hasn't worked in the past. So let's keep it in the past. And now let's start going forward and let's start trying new things. And we're going to keep some old things, but some new things have to come in, because we've noticed over centuries things don't work. And now we're going to listen to Michelle exactly how she's dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And it's so, yeah, it's all full circle. The first thing that we have to like really come to appreciate is that academically, our children, it doesn't matter what we do academically if we're not doing what we need to do holistically and wellness and health. Like, if we're not doing full circle what is best by our children for our children, then advocating for academic support is in vain. And that is one aspect of the policy reform that I do advocate so hard for right now locally, is the fact that it needs to be a combined effort. I have been quoted telling school districts that I don't give a damn about their academics, that my child's mental health is more important, and I have to worry about that as a parent. And some will take it however they choose. When you're fighting for your children, you are going to be unwavering and unapologetic regardless. And I don't do what I do seeking approval. Sometimes it feels like that in some of these meetings. You know, you go into these meetings. I've gone in them alone with advocates. I've gone in with, you know, it never like feels different, or every time it just feels like a repetitive cycle. It's like, we already know XYZ. We know this don't work. There's data to prove that and that's why I am very hopeful there'll come a day that we can utilize a plan like the UK, you know, that is full cycle everything until the age of 25. Because, you know, once you are here and you get to 18 and you get through high school, they think our kids' lives just end. And then once you go into college at 18 to 25, you got to start the whole process all over again at a higher academic level. It's insanity. Let's just get that one on the board. Secondly is my own personal view, this is a reflection of no one, I don't understand why anybody globally says that our children are grown at the age of 18. Our children, science has proven a brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. 18 to 25, And that additional 7 years that you could be investing and nurturing your child, if you was to look at them in that adolescence view, because here in the States, there are so many that you're 18, get the F out. And that gap of our generations, the ones that are 18 and their parents obviously weren't raised to in a manner that was conducive to positive numbers in society. You know, you're kicking your kid out at 18. That in itself is a contributor to all of this misfortune and all of like, and then it all wraps back around to the ACEs and IEPs and what you guys did. It's recognizing what is happening in adolescence. It's carrying over into the adulthood. Recognizing that a child getting on a school bus hungry and being bullied is going to walk into a school and want to die. But you don't even care to address that because you want to argue with us about what they're not doing academically. It's bullshit. It's rhetoric. It's political. It's bureaucracy. And it's money. Because ultimately, if our child's best interest was at the center, all this outside noise and static would just taper away. And we would be having conductive, productive conversations that it didn't matter the root cause. It was about fixing it and moving forward. Like, I live in Akron, Ohio. We are the founders of the national public education system in the United States. And I am the first to tell y'all, it don't work. It was built in an industrial time when industries were having people clock in and out and steel was taking over and the Midwest was booming, and it was to institutionalize people. Bell rings, clock in. Bell rings, get in class. Bell rings, go to lunch. Bell rings, go home. Repeat, wash and repeat. And it's a pipeline to our prison. It's the same thing. Historically, we've proven this doesn't work. We need to historically stand up as a parent individually and look at these systems failing our children and say enough is enough. You take oaths as our city councilors. You take promises as our teachers. You become, who's on your school boards in your cities? Who did you vote in? Because when you have problems with IEPs, those are the questions I ask. Who did you vote in on your school board? Who are you dealing with in the educational department? Because those are where, man, everybody's, like, I know, Michelle B brought into it, about Trump and political. At a national level, like, let's just be real. Ultimately, we need to deal with the local level first. Trump is trying to do whatever he does at a national level. Like, I personally care what's happening right here in my zip code to my child in her school district. And I care about the people we are, what mayor and what school board, what judges, what prosecutor, who did we vote in right here that's failing my child right now? Because the president is not coming to Akron, Ohio to save my child, period.
Thank you. Honestly, we vote in our county officials, you guys. So you also vote in your school officials. If you vote them in, you can't complain about them. Start thinking about what you want. You can't vote someone in and then complain. Like she said, Trump is federal and global. We are county. We need county and state. We need to take care of our county and state. Hell, Trump's taking care of our country. Thank God. All right. So let's get our county and state. He's the president. Okay. So the president oversees the United States. Us as county and state people, we vote in our own separate boards for our schools. Not anyone up there federally, you guys. We do. You got to walk into your school. They used to call it PTA and such. Just walk on in there. And I know some of you can mail in your ballots too. But unless you see these people, how are you going to really know how these people are going to act and have your best interests? I have seen an actual county lose everything on their school board. And now they've had to come back and redo the whole school board, but get back a different attorney and everything. All because no one actually showed up and voted, but then all of a sudden they were mad and they showed up because of what was going on in the school. And it took something like that for everyone to see what was going on. It's up to us. It's up to us, like Michelle said. Walk on in there, push the button, vote, see everyone. I didn't mean to be that way, you guys, politically, but Michelle's right. We're not federal employees. Guess what? We're blue collar. I don't know about anyone else here, but I work for a living. I don't live in a mansion. My house is $300,000 worth, and that's on a good day. All right, it changes constantly. All right, but I worry about state things. I worry about my county things, and I think in Nevada we have Nevada PEP, and I love going every Thursday night to Nevada PEP because the parents are empowering parents. And you know what? I know everyone else is listening to the parents, empowering parents. And then the Nevada PEP takes it. And then they take it to our state universities. How awesome and beautiful is that at the county and state level? And I just wanted to say that. I don't like being political because both sides want the same.
It's not about being, it's just, that's people, like, there's a lot of rhetoric right now around the dismantling of the Department of Education. And for myself, I step back and I'm just like, everything happening at the federal level, as we trickle down, well, what is it really doing to your local level? What's happening at my local level that needs to be affected, so I try to just follow the trickle. I'm not here to point blame, to cast stones. I'm here to make sure my child has a safe, conductive, good world to grow up in and be a positive contribution to. That's all I care about.
And I think everyone cares about that too, but everyone was scared to come out and say anything because everyone has made mental health so taboo. Everyone was, I've been scared to tell anyone my whole life I'm autistic. I tell you what, most of my friends don't even, not until now or until lately, they only thought I was hyper or cracked out or on ADD or something because I was just really hyper. And now they know about the autism. And I'm all right with that because we've made it so taboo that no one will come forward, like you said, Michelle. And I'm coming forward. This is me. This is us. And they want to hear us, but they don't want us to fight. So let's use our voices.
It's like with the whole word inclusion, it made me naive because where Angelina spent elementary school and where we had a successful IEP and where it was my, I guess, first exposure as a parent with the school system on these levels. Talmadge school system here, in Talmadge, Ohio, they're brilliant. They have built the schools around inclusivity. Every aspect is thought of, every structure of their day. It wasn't until we had to leave that school district to go to where we went to and to experience what we went to that I was naive. I just assumed nationwide every school was inclusive. I didn't know there are still schools in existence that put MRDD children in segregated rooms. I didn't know all of this still took place. I was naive. I thought we was like 10, 20 years past this. And just it's so hard to wrap my mind around. You want me to make my child conform to your ways in a school, but you can't even acknowledge her needs that just don't fit your box. I'm not going to
But
make
that's
her
it.
change to be you.
I think the thing that you just said is let's bring it down so that everybody understands. You cannot put a square peg in a round hole. And that is about as clear as I can make it. If your child does not fit the box, make the box fit the child. And I'm afraid to say, as nice and as lovely as that might sound, it's not easy, but it's worth it. And I can remember, again, stories that come back in my head because of what we're talking about. Ben came home one day and he said to me, "What's your favorite cloud?" I was like, "Think clouds, Paula, think quick." I said, "Cumulus." It's the only one I could think of. Cumulus. Oh. And I'm like, "What's yours?" He said, "Oh, I like the blah, blah, blah." I said, "Oh, right." Moved on. He walked out the room and I'm like, got through that one, you know. Next day, what's got more teeth? A shark or an alligator? I said, "I don't know." Is it a joke? He said, "No." I said, "Alligator." It's like, "Nope, shark." I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Ben, can I just ask you, what topic are you doing?" One day it's clouds and one day it's like sharks and cloud, you know. "Oh, no, Mum. This isn't what I learn in my lessons. This is what I learn in the library." "What do you mean you go in the library? When do you go in the library?" "Oh, every afternoon I get to go in the library. When it's not PE time, I go to the library." "I'm sorry." "Oh, yeah. All the other children have to do their work, but I've already done it. So I go in the library and I'm allowed to read books." So the thing that's identified on his IEP is that he needs help with socialization. The biggest thing that he needed help with was his socialization, his social skills. So what do? Let's put him in solitary confinement in the library. Does that explain everything we're talking about in a nutshell, right? So when I went to the school and I was at this point, I was a bit calmer. And I just said, "You know, my son's learning so much. It's great because he loves a book, loves a fact. You'll always find him in the fact sections, you know, 1,000 facts about this and 1,000 facts about that. Not so keen on the old, you know, the dare I say, the stories that I write type thing. But he likes the facts. He likes the books I write now, but you know what I'm saying." So here's the thing. They said, "We can't teach your child." I said, "Why not?" They said, "Because he's done the work already." So I said, "So what you're saying is he's too smart and you can't service him?" "Yeah." "Fine. What school do I send him to that can deal with his smartness that you can't deal with?" She said, "I don't want you to take him out of the school. He's going to get the highest grades of SATs that there ever were. He's going to help push the whole average up." "Oh, so let's keep him in the school to help your average, shall we?" "I don't think so. I should be looking for another school." Now, let's go a stage further. When his mental health was the issue, nobody wanted to come running to his help because it was a problem that the school had caused. It had happened in the school. He was a happy child out of school. He was an unhappy child in the school. What do we do when the school don't want to address the issues that the school have got? What they do is they bury their head in the sand and they say, oh, your child is X, or your child is the round peg square hole problem, or whatever. We don't have bullying. Oh, really? You don't have bullying? No bullying? No bullying at all? No? Okay. So you have a poster. Oh, yes, I saw it as I came in. We have a zero bullying policy. I said, can I just tell you, you don't have a zero tolerance of bullying. You have a poster. That's not the same thing. Putting a poster on the wall doesn't say that you have no bullying. You have bullying, you just have a poster that says otherwise. When Ben left the school, they did a it's like we have an Ofsted, but they came in and they went through the school, and all the children were asked to fill in a questionnaire right the way from entry level through to 11 to 18. And they filled in a questionnaire and they found that there was racism, there was bullying, there was sexual harassment, there was pretty much everything that you could think of that you would think a school doesn't want to see on a piece of paper was there. Now, I had to pay for my son to go to a private school to get his needs met. We were fortunate enough to be in a position to do that. It wasn't easy. It was a stretch, but we did it. Now, if you take a child that is in the standard school system, his needs were never going to get met, because a child that falls, as I said before, the square peg and the round hole, what you have to do is bend. You bend and they bend, and you find the middle ground. I was hitting a bloody brick wall with that school, right? Okay, so he's too bright for that year. He's already done that year's work. Take him up a year. They had a class that was year 1 and 2 together. Ben was already doing year 2 work. He'd done all the year 2 work. And they were going to keep him back another year. And I was like, why? All his friends are in the year 2 group. That's who he sits with. That's who he works with. When they go up to the next class, 3 and 4, he should surely go with them. No, he's a year 2. He'll go from year 1 to year 2. No, he's already done the work. You're going to make the most craziest bored-ass kid in the world out of my child because he's already done it all. Or you can stick him in the library from morning till night, because what's the point? And they were like, oh no, the local education authority won't accept us moving him up. So we wrote to the local education authority and we said, move him up a year. No, we can't do that. Now, I read the other day that a kid of 10 years old has just been accepted at Oxford University. How can a kid of 10 years old be accepted at Oxford University to do a degree at 10 years old and you can't move my child up? It's not that you can't, it's that you won't. And this is the word that I want to bring into everything that Michelle is saying, everything that both Michelles, Mrs. and Ms. and Miss. I am saying this with all my heart and not trying to say it to be disrespectful. You won't. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't. So when I said, well, I'm taking him out of school, they pleaded. They pleaded with me. No, don't do that. I said, no, I'm sorry, he's going. And he left, and that was the end of that story. And we had bullying at the next school. We didn't have bullying at the first school. We had bullying at the second school. Bullying like you can't imagine. And it was really interesting that when you look back now, the kids that were bullying him, I bet you most of them are very unhappy children. Most of them have got their own issues. Most of them are probably not getting the attention, the love, the support. One child told Ben, "I hate you because you've got two loving parents." Not a great reason to bully someone, but that was his reason. And what I want to say is this: don't accept "I can't." Okay? "I can't" and "I won't" should not exist. Let's try, yes, let's try and give it a go. Let's move the peg a little bit and see if we can make it work. As soon as you are up against the legalities of trying to bend a system, as you are, Michelle, and I won't get into your details, but the key point for me is this: when somebody says brick wall, not moving, right? You can't do anything. You can't negotiate with a brick wall. You can't move to try and get to a place where you can both come to a point of agreement when the brick wall says no, right? So what we need to do is make those brick walls go away. And we need to replace them with flexible walls. Okay? The walls that say maybe, that say let's try. Let's say, what about this? How about we give this a go? Suggestion. Let's try the positive approach as opposed to the "I can't, I won't, I don't." Because while we've got those, we are never going to have everybody happy. And I'll tell you, in the UK, do not think we have got a solution, because SEND, as we call it over here, is another big group, which is the special needs, if you like, was the terminology. The SEND group are fighting and fighting because at county level, as you say, right, they've gone to the pot called the SEND pot, right? The pot of money, any will know this is true. They've gone to the pot that's supposed to be for SEND, allocated out of the budget. There it is, right? That's the dustbins, right? Over there. That's the education. And that's the SEND pot. They went to the SEND pot. Guess what they found? They found it had been pilferaged. There was nothing there. So all these people that have done the you and the me and the fighting and the persevering and the let's accommodate, let's try and push the round peg in the square hole, let's meet in the middle, let's take the wall down, and then they say yes, and then they get to the pot of money. We can't give you a TA for 4 hours a day because that teaching assistant would be paid for out of the SEND pot. And the SEND pot's been spent. Well, the question now is, and this is what's going through government at the moment, is was the SEND pot ever put there in the first place? So the same issues that you guys have are happening worldwide. And the reason it's worldwide is because the issues that we're all having are coming to the surface because people are no longer being quiet. Over to you, Michelle.
So, Nancy, you said that during this process, so this was like about last year, one of the things I've learned, so with IEPs, we're here, well, I can really only speak for Ohio. Obviously, the IDEA, the federal guideline, but then we have Ohio guidelines. So one thing I learned was that if you go through the IEP assessment and then you're awarded the IEP, and then it's determined that the current school is unable to provide the accommodations required through the said IEP, it is then that school's responsibility to pay the financial difference to send the child to the school that is capable. So that right there was what it took for me to have to then get legal representation, because it was then we were on our maybe second or third denial and just that, you know, it had been months of back and forth that I finally retained legal representation. But you're dismissing me and invalidating my child because it means you have to admit you're unable to provide her what she needs. Help me make that make sense. I don't understand. And then throughout this ordeal, to find out that who you're contracted with is committing Medicaid fraud and my child is suicidal, but yet your entire staff is trying to make me feel like the disgruntled parent. It is how much of our children's education and just what we expose them to as parents, and how it's so fundamentally revolving around money and politics and the bureaucracy, when you really got to start going through trenches like me. It's like to the point now where like we've even contemplated just homeschool, you know, because the education that is worth it, the education that is what she deserves, also comes through a private institution with a price tag I can't afford as a single parent.
If you didn't just nail it on the head, I mean, if it wouldn't have been for my biological father paying for me to go to my private school, I wouldn't have gotten an education, because I think I got kicked out of every school in Nevada. How a minute. And it wasn't because of, I was just being me. I was rambunctious. They knew I had ADD. Had my medication, had to take it to the nurse. But even though when you have your medication and the nurse has it, you're being disruptive, you know, you still get kicked out. But don't worry, though. Back then, they used to send you to a different county, you know, to a different school. And so I would say 1, 2, 3. On my 4th time getting kicked out of high school, my grandmother called my biological father and said, you know, we need to do something about this. And actually, the counselor had brought us in at the school, and she was really nice, and she told me, you can't stay here. You know, we don't have the accommodations for you. You get kicked. You're just too much. You know, and she was cool about it, but she had to say it that way. And she said, but here's a school you can go to. And she's all, and maybe there's always funding put to the side that the county will help pay and everything. So Tahoe Academy was very expensive. And she got a hold of my dad, and my dad said, doesn't matter what it costs, you know, he was in the Navy, he was in the military, but he was like, let's do this for my kid. And I would say my first month there, I got student of the week. I don't know how you go to complete zeros, Fs. I think I had a 2.1 or something. And I had brought it all the way up to a 4.0. I mean, I still have my certificate from there. You know, I was very proud. So I can understand your frustration with you can't afford it, because when my grandma went to go get help from the county, there was no help. There was none. So it was either my dad and her split, or I didn't get an education. So my dad, I think, paid for 75% of it, and my grandmother paid for 25% of it. And I lived at the school. And so I can't imagine at this day and age having to pay for school. We did have to homeschool. My daughter was homeschooled. And it took It's expensive, like you said, especially if you want to get an accredited homeschool. Now, that's a big thing. Just because you homeschooled, you got to have it accredited. That county that you're living in your state has to accredit. That school that you just left has to accredit that. Not only that school, but they want to know exactly what the whole process and the school year is going to be. They want a calendar, or you go to jail.
And for me, it's not even to mention homeschooling. For me, is last resort. Like, that is not a want. Like, that is going to be a dire. We are out of options, because with my child and with her neurodivergency, it's exactly what Paulette said in the beginning, to bring it full circle. The IEP main focus is my child's inability for healthy creations of peer-to-peer socialization.
Yeah, that took my daughter out. I'll admit it. My daughter wanted to commit suicide in the 6th grade. A sixth grade.
At the end of the day, conversation always comes down to finance. You mentioned earlier, Michelle,
It does.
that the school would say we can't afford to accommodate everyone.
Yes.
As Paulette mentioned, which is how the world really works. When there's a plan, a legal responsibility to provide services, the federal government is just as in UK. I'm sure your federal government has a funding. I think IDA you called. I think you mentioned earlier, Michelle, that then sends money down. So the money is there somewhere. Where's the money gone? See, I think deep down, maybe there's not enough money. Maybe they would die. I don't think it's about money. I think that's why I left Denise's comments on here. Denise, I'm so sorry. Every time I had to leave the room, I lost all the comments on StreamYard. Really annoying, right? But literally, she's saying it comes down to the people the people who run the systems, the schools, social services, the health people. They don't care. They don't care enough. They just only want to do the minimum work. As Denise says, we need to rely on each other. That's number one. But Denise, I'm so heartbroken. I lost pretty much everything because the few I could find, I brought on here as well. And Denise says, it is down to discrimination. Some really don't care. They want what they want. It doesn't matter, especially if they have deep pockets and a set of reputation with high test scores. I think that's what Paulette was talking about earlier, where the schools are more interested in their grades. And so, let's face it, most children with special needs, most neurodivergent children are not like Paulette's son, who are high achievers. They're not. I wish they were. They're just not, right? Many struggle to just learn. And most of the plan that we're at IEPs is about how to help them learn the best that they can. And the schools don't want to support those children. Like I said earlier, they rather put them in the badly behaved, misbehaved category group than say, what can we do to help these kids learn? We need to change this lack of care. So if anyone's watching from service providers, this is a true problem. Maybe at the heart of it is this next point, which is that everyone has a say about your kid. Everyone, grandparents, school teachers, playgroup friends, whatever you want to call them. The people who run playgroups, right? And all of that, basically, the only person who doesn't get a voice is the child and the parents. Because even if they do, the system decides, you know what, we don't like that. So let's go with that one that we do like. It's a ridiculous way to provide services to anyone. It really it's so shameful. I wish it wasn't that way, of course. If there's something Denise said earlier, also about the admins, I think here it is. Yes, do that. We have to keep exhaling, keep calming down. Otherwise, you do come across as that angry parent. I've seen so many angry parents. But, what else can you do? As Paulette mentioned earlier, what can you do? Yes, you're going to look like a total lunatic, but I'm saying, but that's, you're so frustrated, so angry that the only thing you can do is shout. But I don't think that's the answer. I think there must be better ways. This is what we're trying to find today. To talk, advocate, be more strategic. As Denise says, we can strategize, have a plan how you're going to tackle this issue. So you're going to talk to, when, about what. So the admin of these service providers, they're the gatekeepers. Yes, the bosses.
Can I just say, just quickly, just to interrupt you 1 second, the gatekeepers of the pot of money that isn't there. This is the truth, okay? You're the gatekeeper of the pot of money that isn't there. So you've got an IEP and whatever it is that you have that says your child is entitled to, you need to give the provision for. And they go, computer says no, because they don't have the money. That's the truth. There isn't the funding. And I honestly, I got outraged the other day. There was a picture. It was one of the Telegraph, like jokey things, supposed to be funny. There's if you can imagine a sort of an axis like this, and it was talking about what's happened to the world, right? 0 ADHD down here, right? Now ADHD 2025, we've gone like this, and there's new arrows up here, and they're going, it's all a scam. I'm like, whoa, what? A scam? Oh, it's all being done online. It's a scam. People are getting self-assessed. This is what's happening. The truth of the matter is we didn't know really about ADHD back in the day. We didn't really understand the fundamentals of autism. We didn't understand the fundamentals of any neurodivergence. So now that has come to the fore. Of course, the bloody axis is going to show a trajectory that goes through the bloody roof. Of course it is. But
I can't speak for everybody else. I grew up in the 4S generation. Sit down, shut up. Don't. I grew up in don't talk about it outside this home. Don't cry over spilled milk. So for them to say that it was a 0 to now we're skyrocketing, no, we are the last generation to refuse to accept dysfunctional family and toxic behavior. We're the last generation to allow generational patterns to continue disrupting our children. We just chose to not shut up no more.
Absolutely. And that wasn't the option. The option is, do you accept that this diagnosis has suddenly gone through the roof? Well, no. What we're saying is we have a fundamental problem in our world, that there were always children who were different. There were always children, always. We've got more kids with trauma now because of all the other horrific things that are going on that you add to that level. But the actual ADHD, the ADD, the neurodivergence was always there. My foster brother is 34 years old. He had it when he was 5. Okay. Charles's sister is 54. She's had it all her bloody life, right? Undiagnosed. Nobody talks about it. Pick the carpet up, shove it underneath. Let's pretend it's not happening, right? That is still the motto. That's how it is for some families. They would choose to say, shh, don't mention the war, right? That is how it is for some families. But let's not be those families. Let's be the Michelles. The Michelles, plural, not singular.
The Paulette as well. Look,
listen, everybody needs to get on board, everybody.
So that's a point I was making just now, where if you listen to enough people, you're bound to find someone who says, this is not a problem at all. This child's perfectly fine. It's overdiagnosis and we don't want that. And then the system goes, oh, we don't want to diagnose them because it must be fine. Even everyone else knows the truth. Look, so let me finish Denise's point. Admins do what's easier for them, what works for majority. And so, Denise, I wish I sent you the link in your DM. It's a bit late now. So me and Paulette do have to rest for our next event, which starts in 20 minutes. Yes, Paulette. Again, Denise says, say it out loud, my daughter was homeschooled online and accreditations and socializations were problems, they were real. Moved our daughter to Arizona, I imagine, in the midst of the pandemic to accommodate her social and academic needs online. It is, this is a real problem. This is the point, right? And so, yes, when I met Denise, she was writing her book. It's now becoming an endless book. The whole thing's that way. Michelle Ramos thinks nothing ever ends because it's always a drama that just goes on and on. These journeys, battles just go on and on. But Denise's book for us to look out for is The Misadventures of Educating Sarah, One Mom Story. Denise, make sure you come to me to publish that book, please. I'll find a way to do as low as I can. But I want to publish that book when the time comes, please, for sure.
Yes.
So Denise says, I could not work and would have gotten fired because I had to advocate for my child past 21 years old. I'm returning to the workforce and looking for new opportunities in New York City. Yeah. If you know anyone hiring customer services, student services, or public services, I'm here to
Lady
serve.
K and Lady J.
Good on you, Denise. Good on you, Denise. Good on you, Denise. Really. Look, Denise, and I'm sure we'll agree with Denise. The generational abuse stops with us. It must.
That's right. We're breaking the chain. We're breaking the chain.
Denise, you're a star. You're a star. Now, thank you so much for joining us. Look, I'll let everyone have their final message because now Paulette and I do have to go. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble.
All I can say is educate yourself. As hard as it is to not give emotional responses, find these groups, find these safe spaces to let the emotion be there when it's able to be there. But don't ever stop advocating. Don't let them silence you, and just know that you gotta constantly be educating yourself. You have to constantly be aware of what's happening from the moment they get on a bus or they walk into school to lunch to I was getting phone calls from my kid in a bathroom stall crying every single day at the same time. It was enough for me to put together pieces like, okay, what is this period? Why is she in a bathroom crying? Why haven't I heard from a teacher or anybody at the school in the last week and a half to tell me my child's missing? Be aware and document everything. So in Ohio, it's a one-way record state. I record calls. I do email communications. You can never, your word without receipts is not going to be acceptable. Make sure you document.
I agree. Quick question, Michelle. The Michelles. So in England or in the UK, you have a right to independent advocate. That's how the families got me to work with them, and I was paid by the state, by local authority. Amazing. So when they worked out, I was a dangerous court happy freak. Then they were like, we want our contract back. Give someone else. No. So do you have those advocates in the US? Do you have access to it?
They do have educational academic advocates here in Ohio, and they are amazing. They're very awesome tools and resources to utilize when you're in the journey. I am just your non-typical source of person in the sense of it's not that I know more, it's what they're legally allowed to do to help you get through this process. I've well exceeded those parameters.
You know more and you care more. No, my
Well,
problem was
they're knowledgeable. It's not that I know more. It's when it comes to the legalities, that's where their hands get tied. Like they're allowed to advocate with and for you and next to you, but the moment you hit legal litigations and courtrooms, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, no. I think I'm not. I know. I don't want to criticize an advocate's knowledge. They said that we learn a lot about the legal system. What I found lacking is the passion for the parents, for the kid. The genuine feeling the pain. That's why I always and I brought all my skills, the whole me, to every single case, because
Well,
I had to get it needed. It had to be done. Go on, Michelle, please. Give us your last word. Lisa's coming for us, Paulette.
I apologize. I was just wanting to say in Nevada, we have Nevada PEP, and it's actually parents empowering parents. And at Nevada PEP, you get your own, you're assigned someone at Nevada PEP. Okay. You get your counselor, you get everything. And so if you ever have an issue at the school, you call your Nevada PEP representative. Your Nevada PEP representative picks up and says, wait, we've got you, Michelle. And that's what we've done in Nevada. And Nevada PEP, I can't say enough about them, folks, because it is us parents talking every night. Well, not every night. We have a certain night that the parents get together, and it doesn't cost anything to join Nevada PEP at all. And they listen to us parents, and they're just like, okay. And we give each other, well, this worked for our kid. Oh, well, and we do have a lot of foster parents in there. And these foster parents, unfortunately, haven't had time to be updated on a lot of this autism. And what's beautiful is they want to learn. And that's why I decided to go on my adventure, because there were so many people that wanted to learn. And I was just, really, you want to learn about me and what our kids have? I'll be back. Let me go surf the wave of life out there, and I'll be back. And so honestly, everything you guys say that we do here every Tuesday, I take back to Nevada PEP with me. And you guys, I can't tell you how much they appreciate it. And that's all we need to do, is be parents empowering parents. It's that simple, folks. It's that simple. You know what? Love you all, and I'm good.
No, thank you, Michelle. Lisa, we're coming. A couple more from Denise. I so look. The one thing I'll say for today, please book to meet with Denise. And maybe you have something that you can offer her. Maybe she has something that you can offer you, right? I think supporting each other, as you're saying, Michelle, is the answer. That's how that's.
I think there's a job there, Annie. I think that Denise, with all her life experience and everything that she's gone through and taught her child and everything that she's had to fight for, there is such a need for advocacy and advocates in the world that she could find herself. That could be her role. And instead of looking for a job, put yourself out there as a parent expert. That's the way to get around it. Exactly. That is exactly what Michelle Ramos is. She is a mom. She is a care, her own. Well, she's everything. But she's, for me, when you have someone you can talk to, when you have someone you can go to, when you know that there is a person who's been through it, they can hold your hand to a degree. It might not be exactly the same, but there'll be something you'll get from that. So indirectly, Denise could set herself up as a group and actually charge for that service, because people will pay for it, because parents will pay for parental expertise. Michelle is exactly the same. When you need an advocate, Michelle Ramos is the first person I think of. And that is the truth.
See, Paulette,
that's the truth.
Now, let's be clear. Advocates are on the family side. They're independent
Absolutely.
independent of the system
But
completely.
But if you're a parent who doesn't understand, doesn't know, you need a parent who's been through it and does know. And
I agree.
that's what I'm saying, that somebody like Denise, somebody like Michelle, who I mean, I don't want to put myself in the frame because it's a different world. I'm talking majority to Americans. So I'm the wrong person. I'm just got a loud mouth and I just shout. And
Yeah.
and because I'm intelligent enough, people listen. But you know, I am just a mouthpiece for what I'll say it. You know, that is what I have been. I will do that for everybody. If you want me to come and shout for your kid, I'll come and shout for your kid. But if you want someone to do something with a little bit more panaz and the legal side towards it, go to Michelle. I'm just going to go shout at them, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but there is a use for all of it, and Denise could find herself in a position where her expertise is needed. And
Yeah.
you know, talk to you. You're Mr. Entrepreneur himself, you know, and collaboration is key. So let's get our own group of people up.
Yeah, for sure. Look, Michelle's service. Michelle's there already, right?
I was just about to say, don't raise statistics, and there she
Yes.
goes.
Oh my God. You know what?
We
Come as
have
quickly,
hope.
Michelle, before Lisa goes bald.
Here's my sign. Thank
We
you,
have
Michelle.
hope. We have
Here's my
Pat. We have
sign.
Mitt, and
Oh my
now we
God.
have
Here's my sign. I love you, Michelle. You know, could you have been just a little bit more, Michelle, here's your sign, and then wrote out something on it, like, this is for you. No, really read it again.
She always does. She always does. Michelle, this is one for you as well. The importance of recording and documenting, as you mentioned earlier. See, Michelle records almost everything.
Yeah, if it's not documented, it didn't happen, folks. And I don't care what anyone tells you, and a lawyer will tell you the same thing. If it's not documented, it didn't happen.
and take your own specific legal record. Like in Ohio, it's one side record, so it's legal to record in my state without the other party's permission. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't practice law. I am being sued for it right now, but I do not do that. So you gotta educate yourself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've never
agree. No, I think
that
even conversations you can record conversations because the smart systems workers will say things in passing. Off the record. Nothing's off the record when it concerns your kid, right? Nothing's off the record. Every conversation is professional conversation. So record everything. And then make sense of it. I don't know what I've missed.
And don't stop asking questions. Yeah. Don't let somebody make you feel like they're dismissing or just answering to answer. Ask questions.
I agree. Denise, I understand. Look, it's very hard to be here and looking at your DMs. That's why I have to tell people, if you want me to send you the link, put it in the comments. I can't look at my DMs on my WhatsApp. I can't look anywhere else, right? So look, now we're here every 2 weeks, Denise. So do join us again. I'm sure we can talk about social skills as one of our topics. I'd love to have next topic organized in my mind as a potential to go on your list. I think you have a lot to say on that one, Denise.
I'd like that one because I'm yes on that one. I'm giving it hands up yes.
Michelle B, please put it on your list. If that's 11 or 12, I don't mind. So if that's a topic, then let's bring it back. So, but we're here again 2 weeks time, so do join us.
You got to write down what she just said. You went so fast and you went over.
She wants social skills for neurodivergent children. That's something that we can. How do we develop that in our children?
Oh, I got it.
Denise says she's creating a docu-series, Born to be Mean. That spotlights dynamic families with disabilities living against the grain of society's expectations.
What is Denise's last name? I apologize.
Lisa, I love you.
Jackrel, Jackrel.
Jay.
Go in the comments afterwards, and
Oh yeah,
she's
okay, I
there.
can
So
do
do connect with her for sure. If you have a problem, let me know. I'll connect you with her.
There you
So
go.
I lost my. So I'm choosing to work for benefits and the salary and work on this in my own time. I've done life coaching, and I'd rather work for an organization. Understand me? Of course, we understand, Denise. You know, security of a job sounds better. There's so much more fulfillment in being your own, in creating your own service that really impacts people. That's what I say. You know, so there is a lot there. I mean, this is about you, Michelle's. Yeah, she's a powerhouse and going scorch earth at her school. No, I think it's her daughter she's talking about. She's a powerhouse and going scorch earth at her school, working on that. Thank you. And so last I'll show Denise's comments is no, it's not that one. Sorry, ignore that one. Ignore that one. It's this one. You're all beautiful souls. That doesn't includes me. I'll take it. Keep being who you are for your loved ones. Agree. My friends, thank you so much. So we're talking financial planning
And
next.
for all children, I think
Yes.
that's the other thing. We care about our kids, but we're trying to change it for all children.
Yes.
Agree. That's the only way things are going to change, really, right? You know, saying that.
Future, man. The youth are our future.
Go, Michelle.
No, I'm just saying the youth are our future. Let's teach them tools how to surf the wave of life.
Please do join us in 2 weeks' time. We'll go again on another topic, I'm sure. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy. Where's my outgoing song? Oh, yeah, I found it. That's it. Bye, everyone. Say bye.
Everyone.
She's success with Global.Media.com and celebrate it with or without champagne or rum. She's success with Global.Media.